Welcome back to the Beyond the Bestseller podcast. I'm your host, Kelly Schuknecht, and today's guest is a very special repeat guest, Anne Dranitsaris, author of Are Your Relationship Rules Ruining Your Happiness? Now, we had Anne on a few weeks, maybe months ago, to talk about a book she published in 2025. This is now a new 2026 release. So, welcome, Anne.
Thank you so much, Kelly, and thank you for having me back. It's always wonderful to be with a familiar host and be able to continue the conversation that we started back in 2025.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you reached out to me, like, hey, I have another book. Can I come back on? Love that because you've got a lot of books, actually. So the first book that we talked about a few months ago, now I have to scroll to find it again.
Not broken,
It is not broken.
just
Remember.
just
Just delayed. Yes. Not broken, just delayed. We had a great conversation. I just can't remember the title. But yes, that was a great one. Again, like a few weeks, months back. So if anyone wants to catch up on that, they can go back and find that one. But tell me about, are your relationship rules ruining your happiness? I'm really curious about this one. It's a very interesting title.
So just to give a little bit of a preview, a prelude to how I got here in terms of my writing of my books.
Yeah.
Um, the last book, originally it was going to be called Beyond Codependency, but I really wanted to get across this theme that we're not broken. Our development just got delayed in childhood because really most parents, most of us don't know that there are actual developmental stages that kids go through, and they have needs that need to be met at every stage. And of course, children have to adapt to their environment, but there's a sweet spot of just enough adaptation of a child. And without that, they start developing a persona, an acceptable way of being in the world, which causes them to, in adult life, to go out into their relationships, not really with their authentic self, but with that persona. And I've been talking about that. I wrote about this in Power Past the Imposter Syndrome. I tried to really spell it out more in Not Broken, Just Delayed by charting out 100 years of codependency and how we got stuck there thinking that codependency was actually a medical condition. And going into this book, I actually wrote more about the stages of development and how and when we can get delayed. And it's not that we're broken. It's just that more of our energy, developmental energy, is going into developing our self-protective or our adaptive persona than it is going into developing our authentic self. And so we get wired, actually hardwired, to behave that way. It's automatic. We don't even have to think about it.
So now with the relationship rules book, is that so I can imagine where this is going. So talk to me about like how that then affects our relationships. I'm very interested in this because I feel like, and I can't remember if we talked about this the first time, but I feel like, when you're in your 40s, as I am, like you start to realize, you start to like not care anymore. Like I'm just gonna do the things I want to do, and like I
Yeah.
feel myself becoming more and more myself and not caring about what people think, which is new to me, right? Like, and so I don't know what that is, like, so, something that just something changes in our brain. But anyways, so take me back to the book, the relationship rules. Like, how does that are the way that we are portraying ourselves, or the I forget how you said it, but like the way that we're showing up when it's not authentically us, how does that affect our relationships, and kind of how did you take your message and put that into this new book?
Well, and if I can just take history back a bit again as well, if you look at a 7-year-old who's been getting messages, you're too much, you're too loud, you ask too many questions, and suddenly the child begins to believe that if they express themselves, they upset the people around them. And the adaptation is, I will try and please others and I won't express myself so much. And so that belief then morphs into a should, you see? And, these, 7-year-olds making decisions based on a 7-year-old's brain, they don't know any differently, but it goes in and it becomes part of our operating system. And as an adult, then here we are, we show up and we want to say something, or we want to be, that wild and crazy person sometimes,
Hmm.
and we stop ourselves because we're supposed to be demure as women. We're supposed to be nice. We're supposed to give our partners the floor for it. That's just one example. Men have their own version of this that they get into, but we're constantly editing and
Yeah.
monitoring ourselves. And then to your point about hitting 40s, it's part of the midlife transition that we all go through, where we say, what is most important to me? Because I can't keep showing up in my life in this way. It's costing me too much. And, we may need that barrier, that boundary of I don't care, but it's I can care and do it anyway. You see, it
Hmm.
matters if people approve of me, but if they don't, I'm doing it anyway. It doesn't alter my behavior in the relationship
Yeah. Yeah.
or at work
Um,
or in other aspects of life.
yeah.
Yeah.
It so I've been on this journey. So this speaks to me so much because I've been on this journey really these last few years, but I have started doing a lot of content creation. So really 5, 6 years ago, I started doing content creation on TikTok, right? But I like didn't want anyone to see my TikTok account. Like I didn't want anyone in my real life to see my TikTok account because they would be like, what is she doing, right? And I had people find it, and then I had people have that kind of reaction of like, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? And I feel like over the last year, the last few months anyway, I have just been like, I don't care. Like I'm going to share this content. I'm going to tell people I'm doing this. Like, I don't care. So I don't, like part of me is like, I feel like I go back and forth between this is weird. Why am I doing this? And like people's reactions and worrying about what people think. And you know what I mean? But like, there's something in me that's just like, but I want to do this. Like, there's something in me that is like this, has this creative, need to do something like that. So all of that to say, like, so my question for you around that is like, so how do you know, like, sometimes I don't know if my own authentic desire or need, or like, you know what I mean? Like, how do you sort through what you're telling yourself, the stories that you've like told yourself because of what you've been told by other people, or like how do you sort through that and know really like what is the thing that I should be doing, whether it's relationships or just, like my example is just something I bring up on this podcast occasionally because
Yeah.
it is my journey and this thing that I'm like playing with and having fun with and I love it. And then I also am like, what am I doing? What like
Well, and it's a fabulous question because it goes to the heart of human development, and most people don't know. And I probably talked about this the last time. The our nervous system and our psychology, we have two agendas. One is to protect ourselves. That's the one that says, "What will people think?"
Yeah.
And then we have the agenda of our authentic self to become who we're meant to be and to achieve our potential. And, we were given a certain criteria about what was acceptable behavior during our childhood in society. And again, as I said, that sweet spot about just enough adaptation that keeps the authentic self developing so that we can keep going despite having that little niggling, oh, but what if somebody gives me a bad review, or what if I get a negative
Yeah.
comment, or but it's part of building. One of the capacities of the authentic self is that ability to just hold one's self-esteem stable within oneself and not have it be dependent on other people's reaction. And that's part of our natural growth and development as human beings, where we initially need feedback from the outer world to let us know who we are. And then we gradually shift into that, self-awareness, we know who we are, and hey, not everyone's going to like me, but I can bear it. And that's the challenge, and that can be the stuck point, you see. That's the stuck point where people will be still afraid of getting in trouble. I've heard executives say this. Oh,
Hmm.
I can't go to the president and present that idea. I'll get in trouble, or
Hmm.
I'll get fired for raising an issue. And that's the fear of the child in the adult.
Yeah.
It's not an authentic fear.
Well, yeah, having come from a corporate background, I mean, that is such a true thing. Like you worry about everything you say, you do, because and again, like going back to like my TikTok, my content stuff, I was always afraid that somebody would see something and be like, what is she doing? Because we weren't supposed to be making money outside of the job, which I wasn't making money, but like, I didn't want people to think that that was what going on or, and so I don't know. There's just, and hearing you say that, it's like, it feels like such a child going like, oh, I don't want to get in trouble, but like,
But
yeah, it's real. It's a real fear of losing your job.
well, and it might not be a real fear. It might just be that the nervous system got triggered, you
Yeah.
see. And when I refer to that child, it's the child that way back then decided that was true, that you would get in trouble if you spoke your mind. So back in the 80s, when alternative medicine was just, sort of taking hold, I was all into it. And we used to call this a tolerance to our own weirdness. You see, that we knew what we believed in, but mainstream wasn't going to buy, naturopathy or hands-on healing or even psychotherapy. During those years was a bit of a new therapy on the scene. But if you look at what we're all saying is, I am afraid I will be rejected. I am afraid there will
Mhm.
be a negative consequence if I just show up and be me in whatever way that takes form, because that's what happened to me too often when I was a child.
Mhm.
And so it stays. And people
And
talk about their fears more than they talk about what they want to do.
yeah, yeah. Now, how do you work through that? How do you retrain your brain around that?
Yes, and so in the book, I take people through the steps of we have to know what beliefs are running in our brain in order to change those beliefs and put in new ones. And you're talking about neural pathways in the brain, and you think about this two things that we have going on, this persona that wants to protect us from, difficult feelings and rejection and conflict and all of that. And then we have this appetite in our authentic self just to keep going and growing. And if we have to shift where our development is going into trying to fix or polish up our persona and make it perfect, or start building stronger capacities in our authentic self. And just what I said earlier about the constant self-esteem, that question of how often do I look to others to tell me that I'm okay, as opposed to I'm okay, I'm just a little down today, or I'm just a little grumpy, or I didn't like what happened, but I'm still okay, and that is intact.
Mhm.
That's, it's beginning with breaking down what actually needs to be developed, because we don't need to fix ourselves. We're not broken.
So when it comes to relationships, what types of relationships are you talking about in the book? Because the first thing I think of is like your spouse, your partner, whatever. But like, is it more than that? Like, what are the relationships that you cover?
Well, in the book, I simply cover the primary relationships, and going from having unconscious relationship rules and not talking about it with your partner, to and I outline the whole process of taking people through to sit down with your partner talk about a rule, start creating some rules that you want to have. And I don't mean, we have to have breakfast and dinner together every day. It's more, when we have conflict, we seek to resolve it in a way that works for both of us. Not you have to stay in the conversation and talk it to death, because one person might actually have a rule where when there's conflict, they need to go away and think about how they feel and what went on. And if they get pressure from their partner, it just makes them shut down and comply. So those are the types of, they're not really rules, but, it makes for a good title of a book.
Yeah.
It's more, what's our contract? We all have a
Yeah.
contract when we go into a relationship, but we never talk about it. We
Yeah.
just never, and making the unconscious conscious and talking about the things that we're afraid to talk about because we don't want to upset our partner.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that scenario just you described. I've been married for 20, what is this? 24 years. And that is exactly what happens every time. My husband is a let's talk it out right now in the moment. Like, and I am I need to think about this and come
Yes.
back and talk, and 24 years in, I think he's finally like gotten around to like, okay, I need to give you a little bit of a break when we're in this moment, but I'm like, we just have different conflict styles, right? Conflict resolution styles. And yeah. And so, but after any kind of argument like that, like we'll talk through it like, hey, this is what I needed. This is what, and
All
yeah.
done.
And,
Yeah.
but
It,
yeah, it just takes
it,
practice, right?
it does. It takes practice and it takes tolerating the discomfort. You see, because people know how to fight, they know how to argue, they know how to make up. But they don't necessarily know how to even identify what's the actual issue. What are we talking about here? Because what we tend to do in our relationships is use our partner to regulate our self-esteem, regulate our anxiety. So in the case of your
Mhm.
husband, he might feel anxious when you have a fight. And so he wants to resolve it right away. So his anxiety will go away. And when you get more into, what's going on emotionally in us that, we want to hurry and because this might be a different issue than we're actually talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because especially when you're heated in the moment, like the issue becomes things that has nothing to do with the issue. Like,
exactly. And you get generalizations like you never want to or
oh
you
yeah.
always.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Never experienced that before. Can you tell?
Never. Nobody wants.
All right. Well, so talk to me about these books. As I was scrolling, trying to find the not broken, just delayed, I was going and going and going. You've got lots of books, Anne. How many have you published so far?
Oh my. Well, I've self-published so many of my books because my first set of books was 16 books that I wrote
16.
on 16 because it's a series of 16 personality types based on the Myers-Briggs type indicator and
Okay.
Carl
Yeah.
Jung's theory of psychological type. And I wrote 16 books because I was working in organizations at the time as a coach. And what was available then was you had this book and you had this book and you had this report, but you never had anything all together. So I decided I would write a book for each of the personality types that talked about how they were in general, their communication style, their work style, their employee style, everything that you can think of and bring it into one place. And then I've written other series based on the Myers-Briggs and the Striving Styles personality system that Striving Styles brings in the emotional needs of each of the personality types.
Okay.
And I wrote a series on, just general information about the type, the work style, the employee style, the leadership style, and the relationship style of each of the types.
Okay.
The books themselves, there are three that I wrote with my daughter and business partner, Heather Hilliard. The first one was Who Are You Meant to Be? The second was So You Think You Can Lead, written for organizations. and the other was Power Past the Imposter Syndrome, which I
Okay.
mentioned
Yeah.
earlier. Again, talking about this adaptive persona that shows up in relationships, at work, in all aspects of our lives.
Wow, you've got a lot of
Yes.
books, a lot to learn from you. I love I'm familiar with Myers-Briggs, but less familiar with that than some other kind of personality kind of test things. We did a lot of that in my previous job, place where I
Yes.
worked, where we did like I've done Strengths Finder, oh my gosh, the DISC,
Personality dimensions? Disc, yes.
DISC, yep. And then, so the Strengths Finder disc, and then there's another one that's work, Working Genius is another one. Anyways, I love those things because you just do understand yourself better, and then why you act certain ways, and then you understand other people better and why they might drive you crazy, or you know. Um, and so I am familiar with Myers Briggs, but like I said, not quite as. It's been a long time since I've done mine. But yeah, I love those kinds of things. So I'm sure your books would be really interesting to find your own, like find out about your own style, but then also maybe your partner or somebody in your life that just helpful to get to know better.
So, in relationship rules, there is a section on the functions of the brain that the Myers Briggs assessment is based on,
Okay.
and what persona they're most likely to adopt based on their personality type. And so, for example, somebody with extroverted feeling, for those in the audience who know what that means, they are more likely to be the caretaker and adopt that persona, and they have to help everyone. They need to be needed, you see. But when it comes to taking things in and being helped, they can't they can't allow it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just one of the eight I identified in the book. So for those people who enjoy the Myers-Briggs type indicator, you can understand your persona and your behavior in relationships more based on your personality type. Because the brain has everything to do with how we behave, and never do we study it, of course.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and what's next for you? You've got, so did you give me a number? How many total books? Do you know the total? Have you lost count of
So
how many
I
books
don't
you
know.
have?
I think there's 76,
Oh my
77 that are
God.
on that are on Amazon. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Now, what's next? Are there more coming?
Right now, I am having such a great time. I just redid my website, and I'm creating downloads because I want to shift somewhat out of working with people into more just promoting my books and talking to larger groups of people about
Yeah.
personality type and how the brain is organized and how we get in our own way by trying to fixing our partners, fixing ourselves. It's a real theme in what I'm writing right now. And it's so much fun being on social media, if I can segue a little bit into book marketing these days.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
as I'm finding, prior to this, I would, when I self-published a book, I would create a PowerPoint presentation with every step and identify the key market for my book and, take days of putting together my master plan for it. And then I would begin the process of putting it into action. And now I'm using AI
Hmm.
and streamline that process, as I'm sure many people are doing. And what it allows me to do is more freedom, more freedom to write and help people, as opposed to spending all of that time marketing it myself.
Yeah. 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 Because those kinds of things it's so time consuming and people don't, yeah, you can show up online and, you can go give a presentation, you can do video content, whatever, but like people don't realize how much work goes into all that. I have like time blocks on my calendar for all the stuff I need to do just to like show up on LinkedIn all the time, to show up
Okay.
on, the different platforms because it is a big part of growing your business. And it's nice to be able to, like you said, spend less time on that. You can get way more efficient with AI. As soon as you were talking about building that deck, I was like, oh, have you tried? Like I was thinking of some tools that, yeah, but it sounds like you're on it. So that's great. Yeah, the time saving aspect of those tools is amazing.
Yes.
And anyone who's still resisting it, stop resisting because those tools are, I mean, that's the future. So you
Well,
just got to
it is,
dive in.
and I did a program. This was years ago. It was a program for entrepreneurs, and this really stuck with me when what he organized the whole program for entrepreneurs around was delegate everything but your unique ability. My unique ability is not marketing. My unique ability is in putting concepts around psychology together and bringing things together and putting it out to people in a way that they can hear and take it in and become more interested in themselves, hopefully.
Yeah.
And and marketing just takes away from my unique ability, and so
Yeah.
if I can delegate it to chat, I am all over that.
Yeah. Yeah. Love it.
I think you are too.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I actually probably am more, I love the marketing stuff, so I love doing it, but a lot of times, like, it's just like, it just takes so much time. And so, yeah, having some tools to just make things, streamline things, make things more efficient, be able to take one piece of content and turn it into multiple things.
Yes.
One of the things I do is every podcast, I do a lot of I have my own podcast, but I do a lot of external podcast interviews as well. And I take every one of those, I pulled the transcript, I put it into an AI tool, and I ask it like to do, I have like a really detailed prompt that takes it and it turns it into like another dozen pieces of content. So, I can take clips of the videos, I can take stories I told or things and turn it into, so it's still work, right? But it's like turning it into a lot of pieces of content that just, it's a huge time saver. And yet still we find ways to fill up our time with more of the same. But anyways, yeah, I actually, I love that stuff. But yeah, it's great for someone like you who wants to spend more time
Yes.
serving clients, helping people, doing things that are growing your business and not the day to day, like just in the weeds with the marketing stuff. Well,
Uh-huh.
and man, you have a lot of books. I look forward to maybe having you back on again when you have the next one. if
And
if
it's
you have one.
it's just another marketing thing that I've done. And for your audience, I've just created a ebook, a free download on my website called the 60 Capacities of the Authentic Self.
Okay.
If they want to check into this, what I'm talking about here, that difference between the persona and the authentic self, and how to start developing this ebook. Well, I think it's about 36 pages, something like that. Um, this ebook will really help them, just get the idea. There's a
Great.
little self-assessment in it too about, how am I doing relative to this capacity? And so it's one of the things for marketing as well, made easier by the use of AI, another marketing tool. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's great. So I was going to end with where can listeners or viewers find you and learn more about you? But you mentioned the ebook, so let's start with that. Where can they access that ebook?
that's on my website, dranitsaris.com.
Okay.
And all of my books are on amazon.com and can be accessed there as well.
That's great. And I'm just going to end with another like little tip from what you just did. One of the things with my clients or with authors that drives me crazy is when people don't have like a CTA at the end, call to action, like go get my ebook, take this quiz, do this thing, right? It's such a handy tool for connecting with people. Like, so somebody might be listening to you on a podcast, but like afterwards they're going to forget, right? Like, but this way, if you give them something that's free and easy to access,
Gotcha.
it allows them to connect with you. I have people I actually had a guest on recently who said, oh, I don't know. I have been getting your newsletter for like years. Like she she didn't know where she came, but it was one of those tools that I had that like, so
Yeah,
she's been following me for years. And anyway, so it is a really, really great thing that you just did, Anne. So you're a, you're a great marketer, even if you want to do less of the marketing yourself. You do a great job. So
definitely. So,
and thanks so much for coming on and sharing your books with us.
yeah, thank you so much for having me, Kelly. It's great fun.
Looking for a community of women writers to support and inspire you on your journey? Join the Author Power Circle. Connect weekly with fellow authors, stay accountable, and move your book forward in an encouraging community. Learn more at kellyshuckneck.com.